we're going to build a week one part two demo. So I'm using this workspace under 5042 lab week one part two demo. This folder is not here, but if I say launch, it should create one. Like, yeah, there's an empty one. So we have our workspace created. Eclipse is open. So this is our workspace. Let's minimize this. Okay, so you can see it is downloading some quick starts. That's fine. So here the workspace is clean, and remember this is the perspective. We are in Java EE perspective. There is a whole bunch of different add-ons available. What I'll do is first create a Java common project, new. If I don't find it in the quick menu, let's quick Java project, and the next I'll call it as week one part two demo common. I'll use the default location under the workspace and use the JRE present in my local environment, and then create separate folders and pretty much hit finish. It will say open Java perspective. Look, this is Java EE perspective. In Java EE perspective, you have Project Explorer and servers, database, and other stuff. But in Java perspective, you will not have servers and everything. You'll have markers. You'll have project package explorer along with project explorer. We'll see. Say open. So you got package explorer right now. You can see. I'll just minimize the tasks, outlines. I just don't need them here. So if I need anything, I'll just use Windows, so view, and add things to the perspective. So different you can see there are like different perspective available at the moment. I'll simply choose the Java one for this. Maybe I can choose Java EE one. It's not be a problem. So the common files generally contains the interfaces or entity classes. For this one common file, what I'll do is I'll copy the package along with the structure to the common common source and place it here. I don't need this. I don't know where it came from. So once you see that, you can rephrase it. Probably what I did was I copied the files into the source instead of creating them one by one. So you can see what's the problem. So basically we have two marker problems. Remote cannot be resolved, and this because libraries aren't there. So what I'll do is I'll do build path. I will add an external jar which is Java E7. So I've collected all my libraries in a J library folder which has this external library file. J7 file. I'll just use it, and yeah, the problems would go away. Setting up the build path, and now it's all gone. That's great. So it's the same thing. So this is the interface, which is having remote annotation. EJB remote means it can be run in an basically there are two annotations here. One is local and remote. If both the EJB container and the web container runs on the same host, you can use local. Other than that, you can use remote. So this is done. Now we'll move to create second part of the project, which is an EJB project. First is common library, then is EJB. Select EJB project. Remember, EJB runs in, there is a target to an EJB, that is it runs in a server environment. So the first thing that I would do is probably create a server if I don't have a server here in my workspace. I have my Glassface installed and Glassface downloaded, zip downloaded here, and Glassface domains. I can create more domains. I can use the same domain with different names, and there is something called as logs, server logs. So this is something that you need to monitor. So what I can do is I always use in parallel uh, a editor to keep it handy to make changes, UTF-8 changes. So I'll just open my document 5024 folder and also the server log. Look, this is what generated when server starts. Probably what I'll do is I'll delete it all. Remember, what I'm looking at is the path of domain 1 log server. So I go back here. I click to create a new server, and the server type that I want is Glassface. So server host name is localhost because it's running in this specific machine, but I can give it a server name called week 1 part 2 demo, and go next. You can copy this name because we'll need it. So find out where your Glassface zip that you have downloaded and say open. What you'll find is your JE location, HDK location, and Glassface shows up here automatically. So you can give it a name. Let's say I can give it the same name. Week 1 part 2 demo is the name of my server. So the name, host as a domain, and use jar archives for deployment. Remember, when I deploy something, it has to be an executable. So I'll use jar archive for deployment, say finish. So that's the server. You want to see the console. What I do is so view console. Likewise. So I start creating a EJB project. So we follow the nodes. So we created the Java common project, and then we go ahead and do so we were going to create an EJB project as the next step. So the next step is creating an EJB module. So first is common libraries as a Java project, then second is EJB, This EJB is a server-side component and hence needs a target runtime. So we just created a server. So I'll just call it as week 1 part 2 demo and EJB minus E, and the runtime is this specific server. EJB modulized 3.2. I'll just use default configuration for week 1 part 2 demo. Look at it. So just use the default configuration in the target runtime. Once that is done, say finish. You can actually go inside and see where the output class folders will be stored, but not that very important. As all default, you can keep it and say just finish. Takes a while to create and build. So one thing about this Eclipse is by default when you create something, it does that build. A build is like creating that jar file. So currently it is empty, so nothing much. So I need to keep all my source file under EJB module. I have the source file, so I keep it very organized. Week 1 EJB under the EJB modules. What I have to do is I have the things. I'll simply copy the source files to my P2 demo E. Yeah, basically that project structure will be created here. So once I refresh, it will appear here. Just refresh, right? So you see, once that appears, it gives some error. Says that create interface, cannot find that interface because that interface is part of this common project, right? The common project has the loan entity and the calculator interface. So what I'll quickly do is we'll check the build path. In my build path projects, I will add the demo common file, and in the libraries I need to add the J7. Once that's done, apply and close, and you will see all error goes away and the build happens, and sometime you can see the progress of it actually. While it's happening, you can see when it's done. All right, so yeah, EJB part is created. So it has common EJB and then a actually you can see the session bin that is created is actually been shown up here. You can see here. All right. So once EJB is done, you create a web project, other Java web. So web dynamic web project, say next. I'll call it as week 1 part 2 demo web. So web will be converted to an WAR file, web archive. Runtime, need to have that server. This is the web module version. I can choose minimal configuration or Java 2.3 or 2.2. I need 2.2. I can modify it. Can go here and say, look, I need 2.2 here, and yeah, class face dynamic JSF. That's all I need. Say okay, and so it will remain custom. So you can confirm that with the thing. Yeah. So you see this creating the class files and the package structure for the EJB. I did that by copying the pre-provided files, and so at the moment we are at this stage, creating the var client. So we created a dynamic web project. I said provide as 2.2 JSF. We have Java, Glassface, dynamic. You had that right? I'm just confirming. All right. Okay. We have that. And back. Correct. So once that is all selected, you can say next. You can see where the source files are stored, where the output is stored, and then you can do finish. So empty web project would be created. There are other ways to create it also, creating as a uh, choosing the frameworks. I'll tell you where we need to make those changes for the framework to happen. So here in the web project we have the source package, the manage bean, navigation, and the API. So so the common project is actually part of all EJB and var. So what I will do is quickly copy the files, this source file into this, and add the project common and the required libraries. Okay, so from here I have an existing working version which I'm using as a reference. So I have a war file. I'll go to the source. I will copy it, put it to web source. So once it's done, you can refresh. So the projects you need to add the common and the libraries. Got to add an external jar. This Java is an API. They apply and close. So once we copied that, we will be able to see manage bean coming here. So that's right. Deprecated. So instead of manage bean, if you'll be using now, you'll be using annotation at that it named, or even you can create new class as new bean class or manage bean class thing. So this is the main manage bean class which holds the values from the XHTML or JSF page, which is like acts like a model bin for the view. So we don't have any web page. Generally, the web page will be on the web content. So I'll see if I can create an XHTML page. Yes, I can create. That means JBoss is installed. If you don't see that option, probably JBoss is not installed. So you probably have to install JBoss from the marketplace. Yeah, JBoss tools. So if you don't see that XHTML option, you simply can go to help Eclipse Marketplace, and so this is running a bit slow, so you got to be patient. Yeah, so you got to just search JBoss, and you can see it's installed, so I don't need to do it. Probably I know it's installed because I was able to create an new XHTML page, so it was fine. So I'll not create it now, right now. I'll just copy it. So when I copy that, so I will copy that again. The web file, web content, index.xhtml, index.xhtml under the web content. So just refresh this. It appear. So once it appears, you can open that. So what if you have installed the JBoss? It will show view, source, and the preview. You can add different XHTML tags, JSF facets, composition. Probably you'll be using composition if you want to keep headers and footers consistent. You might use define, insert. The palette is a very interesting thing. You should know how to use the palette. It's probably drag and drop stuff. So palette is a very quick way of making changes to your web page. You don't have to write this JSF one by one. Using palette, you can construct it quicker. So let's just look at the source. So it's a HTML based thing. So this is the header, and then this is a form. That means there is something called a submit in the form. So inside that form, you have a table. The table has a row that has a label principal and another column that actually provides you an input box. So likewise, there is second row with first column interest rate, second column as another input text. So if you see here, this is expression language, hash, curly braces. So whatever present under expression language is actually referring to the model. So here the model is the loan managed bean, which is this class. So by default, if you have made it as a managed bean, you can use it in the expression language. The class structure is starts with uppercase. However, in the expression language, you can use either both capital and small l. And if you see, the principal is actually from the loan object inside the managed bean. So inside the managed bean, there is a loan object, loan attribute, and inside that loan attribute, there is a defined in the common, there is a field called principal. So This index is actually referring to this managed pane loan dot principal. So whatever value that you put it in a text box, like an input text, it actually calls the setter method to set this attribute on the manage bean loan dot set principal. And then when it displays an output, right, which is an interest, the monthly payment, this is when you click on this button called calculate, which is of type submit. So submit does a submission of the form, and it calls a method called calculate in the managed pane. So in the managed pane, there is a method called calculate, and this calculate calls on the loan object method set monthly payment and passes the values get principal, years, and interest rate that you have set on the page, and it calls this method. So if you command and click on this method, it's actually this method in the loan which is present in the common thing. So this is setting the monthly payment on the loan using that. So how it happens is that when you call this function calculate on the manage pane, it is setting up the value on the loan variable. However, if you see uh, the value that has been set is actually uh, based on the method this calculator, and this calculator is monthly calculator. This is an interface. This calculator is an instance of the class which implements this interface, which is the bean class. So when you click on calculator, it is monthly payment calculator, and this monthly payment calculator is an interface, and the method of implementation of calculate is provided by the bean class which implements this interface. So it passes on these variables in that method, and it computes the monthly repayments and then returns that value. This return value is set to this loan attribute monthly payment variable, and that attribute is then passed to the output as loan management loan monthly payment. So the value that was set here is actually displayed. So if you do use input text or input label, things like that, then it is actually using getter. It is actually using setters. Uh, Fetches the value from the UI and sets the value on the attributes. And when you do output, it actually gets the value set on the attributes and displays it on the outside. So that's all fundamental about it. And there is one important thing in the configuration we haven't touched yet for the web part. So that is the web XML. So there are 3 configuration files. So by default, this is the context path, and it is using uh, some other schemas. You need to use the correct schema which is provided to you. So we'll just copy that from files provided to you. So I'll just copy this whole file. So what it contains is, I'll explain it to you in a timing. So basically this was the previous content, and I'm replacing it with this content. It has XSI, namespace definitions, schema location definitions, just to be sure we are on the same page, we're using the same versions. I'm using this. And we are using um, the faces servlet here, which is the parent controller, and the servlet engine here is faces servlet. And there is something called as a welcome file. So by default, when the project starts, it should display you index.xhtml. Why there is a faces before it? Because anything that is returned from the faces servlet will have a prefix faces. We have something similar here with some other details. Probably we'll get rid of this and save it. So once this is done, you can always open this. It's still fine, not a problem. You can see what's the issue with this. So it is not able to download that application file. So basically the Glassfish that you have used is actually a Maven distribution. But I think it should be fine because it will be available runtime. So I'm not worried about this. So you look at that error went away. So that's fine. So this faces thing, this is actually a very intuitive thing where you can define your navigations. We are not using this at the moment. However, it's clean. But an advanced project define workflows, sessions, we can use it. Yeah. So you can see different cycles, um, life cycles, and scoping behaviors and all things. So we don't need to go details into it. I will just ignore this. We'll just simply use the simple configurations. So once that is done to the web project, what we will do is we'll do a quick check on configurations. Okay, I have the libraries, I have the runtime, I have the project, and then I'll always check the server runtime. So the project it should use is this. Always use the following server, right? And then for the EJB, again I will make a check because these are the server components. They should run on the respective server that I have created, and I'll check the build path once again. The build path looks good. Okay, so once we have these three components, individually we can deploy these files into the web server and run the web. It will still work. So web has some dependency on the EJB to compute the business logic, and EJB needs a dependency on the on the common files. Even the web needs some dependency on the common files to run this. Uh, so I can deploy all these three into the server and see how it goes. But there is something even interesting I can do. I can package all of them together into an ER file. So I just started my server. It's just starting, and I can see the server logs here. It's starting. This is the console output. You can always check this here. The server logs here. So currently there are like 38 lines because I've removed the previous content. So far it looks good. and then so console, there's nothing else to do. So what I'll do is I can create a new enterprise application project. It's there in the quick menu, or else you can go to others and use Java E, and next, so call it a week 1 part 2 demo application. So I want it to be running on this target server. Yeah, version is fine. Using the default location of the launch space, and then I say finish. Okay, it was empty, isn't it? I didn't select anything. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll add modules to it. I forgot to add the modules. Yeah, properties. Server is fine. What I'll do is I'll probably close the project first and delete it, recreate it. I don't want to spend time looking where it is. So I'll call it as a week 1, part 2 demo A, the same thing. And then next, I need to select the 3 all the dependency content directories, ER content, that's fine. This is important because I need to contain all the 3 into the modules to be deployed. So finish. So the building, this building part is the most important. Once the build happens properly, you can see it's deployed. So actually it's a previous deployment of the trial one when I did this one. So it created this EAR file and deployed it. So it hasn't created this EAR file for me yet. I will undeploy this. This is an pre-existing deployment. So what I'll do is I will run on the server and I will wait till this gets published. So once it is synchronized, that means it is published. So you can see under the deployed application, enterprise is deployed. Yo-ho, done. You can then, so by default is actually it's showing index.xhtml. I'm so bad today in spellings. So when I directly call index.xhtml, it's just giving me this web page because it is not getting it from the Faces servlet. So if I want it from the Faces servlet, I should get this. So by default, when I hit the context root of the project, I'm being welcomed with this specific file. Did you see that? This is what is mentioned in the welcome file list. So I can enter some principles like how much you owe to banks, and then what's the interest rate nowadays going on, 3.8. Let's say you have loan for 30 years, then monthly payment, oopsie, 228000. So that means this formula is definitely wrong, and I'm 100% sure none of you have actually taken care to have a look into this, how it computes interest. So this is up to you. Just do it. My job was to demonstrate you uh, very important thing, that is working of the web part of the project. This part doesn't have any database connectivity in the coming lab. We'll just have a standalone web project with different uh, code operations, and none of the operations will be actually uh, persisted into any database, but will be stored into a list or a property array list, things like that, something in the memory or in file. All right, thanks for watching this.